The next time you have a game to play, which obviously is the big game in a couple of weeks.
I think they'll respond well. I'll share something we did today. I was watching quite some time ago when we got bombed in at Pearl Harbor, and the sirens went off, and that sound effect, and it was an alert. It was a all call. It was a rally call for us to come together. We emulated that today for our football team. And as those sirens went off for the rally call, our team merged together at the 50-yard line. We held up all four of our fingers in both hands. We chanted fourth quarter. We chanted finish. Because we're all in. We're all in to finish what we've started. And some of that celebration, some of that noise, if you will, was simply our football team answering to the rally call, being there for one another in a tough situation when, if you will use an analogy, we've been invaded.
Let's go. So I don't know how exactly I totally feel about the Pearl Harbor reference, but it does give you chills that the legendary Frank Wilson is now the head coach of the LSU Tigers. For now, the interim head coach of the LSU Tigers. The whole press conference was great. I thought the same question was asked like 7 times over. And I think part of it is because there's so many, I guess you could say, longtime Louisiana media members themselves that are really excited that he's getting this opportunity. So Frank Wilson is your LSU football head coach. There was a lot that was discussed, and we're going to go through some of it about how different practices were. I feel like there was a lot outside of practice, including Ryan Clark saying the gates have been opened back up. A lot of former players are really excited about this. Even some of the ones that did not play under Frank Wilson because, well, this is going to be an open door for the former guys to come back in. So going through some of the things that Frank Wilson said, this press conference happened roughly an hour ago. The big thing is how important this job is to him and the rallying cry to get everybody under one roof for one goal to get this team to where they could hopefully pull off an upset versus Alabama. And then the question also that a lot of you are wondering after that press conference, and here's the thing, I made the title and thumbnail of this video way before the press conference was going to happen because I knew he was going to kill it, and I knew my phone would be full of Frank Wilson for head coach, or at least we should think about Frank Wilson as the next head coach, as Boris gives a very generous super chat, making a dream staff of LSU legends, Honey Badger, Kevin Falk, and Kelvin Shepard back home. So, look, do I think there is a plausible world where Frank Wilson is LSU's permanent head coach next year? Yes. Do I think that likelihood has gone up because it wouldn't be as expensive as it would be to go get somebody else? Yes, I think Frank would happily take a contract that is not near that of the Kiffins and the Kirbys of the world like Brian Kelly's currently was. So you would get an advantage as far as that is concerned. You would also get somebody that will work harder basically than anyone has ever worked to make it work. You're also getting someone that has head coaching experience. So do you want to hire Frank Wilson, even though as a head coach he did not do well? Do you want to hire him? And then in comparison to getting that next young hotshot offensive or defensive mind that doesn't have any head coaching experience? Or do you want to go in the John Summerall route? Do you even want to think about big game hunting a guy like Lane Kiffin and a guy like the great Dan Lanning? Could you see that? I could see it, especially if LSU goes 3-1 and or 4-0. I forgot when I do these streams, I need to button this one. so you don't see that birthmark there. But really excited to be with you on this glorious evening. There's so much to talk about. We do have a guest coming up, Cooper Patania, who's joined us before. He is the head transfer portal scout for 247 Sports. I am super excited to have him on. The last time he was on, he absolutely crushed it. So there you go. And a little bit later at 7:30, I'll be on Blake Ruffino's show, Mr. AYS Sports, and also a big shout out to Jake Wimberly. I joined him on his statewide Mississippi show a little bit earlier today. So what all has transpired today? Well, not nearly as much that has transpired from Sunday to Monday, and we did the rare live stream on Monday. The one thing that I wish was more discussed in the Frank Wilson press conference, he was asked about Tim Rattay and Alex Atkins and their roles. So Tim Rattay does have play calling experience. It's not extensive. He had some under Lou Holtz while he was at Louisiana Tech. And Alex Atkins also has some play calling experience. My major point during this entire cycle, though, I would have gotten even more analysts to help out Joe Sloan when it comes to actually play calling. I will say, Rattay going to the quarterbacks coach, Alex Atkins becoming the play caller is going to be so fascinating. And Corday Hankton will become the running backs coach or help Frank with the running backs as he now oversees everything. I'm excited about it. I'm open to something new. I do think just by default, knowing how bad the LSU play calling was under Joe Sloan, it can't get any worse in my mind. Now, I was a little disappointed that there wasn't a question about Garrett Nussmeier. And towards the end of the BK era, I am of the belief that specific press conference questions about specific players are always better than the, well, how exciting or what's the team's morale and that kind of stuff. Because, you can answer that question a gazillion different ways. I would have loved to hear from Frank. Maybe this was asked and I missed it. The press conference was not like an hour long, but it was somewhat lengthy. Are you thinking about benching Garrett Nussmeier? Because I am to that point. After watching the Texas A&M tape and a closer evaluation of Vanderbilt, I am ready for a new quarterback. I am. Not necessarily a shot at Garrett under any stretch of the imagination. I also love the idea of keeping Garrett at quarterback for the Alabama game, considering it is the absolute toughest opposition you could face. But as I've thought more about it, I do think Michael Van Buren is built for that. What did Michael Van Buren do last season at Mississippi State? He played the absolute hardest matchups you could possibly play as a true freshman quarterback. He played Tennessee. He played Georgia, at Georgia. Played Texas, at Texas. Playoff teams. He played all three of the playoff teams. The easiest team on his schedule was Arkansas. That was the easiest team. So I'm ready to see what Michael Van Buren has. At the same time, I can understand he's only played 2 games. We can start him the final 2 weeks of the season and see what we have, and him also retain his red shirt. But there's still a lot to play for. You went out, you have a 10-win season. You went out and go 9-3, backdoor shot at the college football playoff. So I've had it personally with the Garrett Nussmeier experience, and that pains me to say it. I was really high on Garrett Nussmeier going into the year. I really was. But I also feel that the wide receivers in particular are ready for something new. So there you go. And look, Garrett's been mostly good at LSU. Mostly good, especially last season. We owe a lot to him for the success of the Brian Kelly era. And I do think even Garrett's shortcomings last year were overblown. But that's last year's analysis. Based on what I've seen this year, it's just not been good enough. All right. Now, what about the offensive tackle play? This has been the worst offensive tackle season in the history of LSU football. And that's after you lost 2 really good offensive tackles. I'm very sympathetic to Garrett Nussmeier's case there. I'm very sympathetic to that. I'm also very sympathetic to the entire offensive operation because the Joe Sloan situation was not great. It was not great. And I'm sure some of you have read some of the message board postings. Some of you have sent me some of the Joe Sloan stories that are out there. He was not the most well-liked man in that building. And that's all the play calling stuff aside. All right. And I used to think relatively different. I would think that people actually liked him. I do think, though, it's different now that all this stuff is coming out. All right. It's one of those things where there are a lot of players and coaches that are rejoicing this new era. No one's rejoicing it more than the former players. And I will say, if Frank Wilson is hired as the next head coach, there's not going to be a group of people more excited for that than the former players. You saw the thumbnail. Frank Wilson is responsible for Leonard Fournette. He's responsible for Tyrann Mathieu as the primary recruiter. He's not the main. He's not the whole reason that those young men chose LSU as a university that they would play their college football. But look, now where we are right now, there would be a lot of alumni support for Frank being the guy. I do think if LSU goes 4-0, you have to seriously consider it. That's not going to happen. I don't think this team is good enough to win 2 road SEC games versus 2 good teams, one elite team and then one very good team in Oklahoma. I just don't think that's going to happen. And then you got to play Arkansas after a bye. Okay? I just don't think so. Now, a few other things. I am also in this coaching search in a bit of a weird spot regarding how it's actually going to go down. Because when the Brian Kelly hire happened, LSU was more than happy to give Scott Woodward all he needed to make it happen. And rightfully so. Kim Mulkey, Jay Johnson, you guys know the story. Now, Johnson had not done what he did yet. Kim had not done what he did yet. But Scott, you give him the chance to go do the dang thing. So Scott goes to get Brian Kelly, and now do you trust him to make this next hire? We don't have a university president. I do think that changes in the next couple of weeks, if not sooner. Does the president really play a role in all of this? Yes. And then, of course, you have many others out there playing a role in what could be the wildest LSU coaching search ever. Because during the Scott Woodward search of Brian Kelly, it was very under wraps. And there were people out there erroneously reporting that Lincoln Riley was going to be the next guy, and it was never him at all. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. It's over my head. Do I think LSU is, and this is a big narrative right now, is LSU still the main job? Is it still the job that is one of the premier in all of college football? There is a holy triumvirate of 3 jobs that to me reign supreme, and that's Georgia, that's Alabama, and that's Ohio State. LSU to me is in that next tier. Now, is it better than Texas? Is it better than Oregon? Is it better than Texas A&M, Michigan, or any of that? It's in the realm of that. But of course, there are many pros and cons you could make of LSU being a better job than those jobs. But I think those top 3 are those top 3. And the inverse of that is also something you should bring up because, look, those 3 jobs are jobs that those 3 coaches would never leave. And then, of course, you have a job like Notre Dame. We've talked about Marcus Freeman. I doubt Marcus Freeman even considers LSU, even if they were to offer them a king's ransom. Okay. So I don't really think, for me, that LSU is any worse of a job than it was when Brian Kelly took it over. But the landscape is indeed different. It is very different. And I brought this up on radio earlier today, and I'll bring it up again here. You have to wonder if LSU wants the next coach to a gazillion % keep Austin Thomas and the staff that they have built there. I will tell you that there are many at LSU that feel very confident that they have championship staff members in place. You take a look at some of the connections that Austin Thomas has with other SEC schools. They brought over one of Lane Kiffin's top recruiting assistants this offseason. Frank Wilson has worked with Lane Kiffin. That's obviously the big name that everybody is very interested in. And then, of course, there's Kenny Dillingham, who for some reason, gut instinct, is telling me is going to be looked at pretty heavily, not necessarily just at LSU, but in many other jobs. So there you go. Now, next thing, and I do think for me, when it comes to the LSU coaching search, you should sell that you immediately get to work with Harlem Berry and Trey Green and some other very interesting pieces. Because look, you can get into, it's different in the NIL era. It's different for you to go here or go there or everywhere. And you could still make a lot of money leaving the state of Louisiana. But I do want to point out that now that we know, and it's out there, that Brian Kelly was not the most well-liked guy, that actually, to me, better sells LSU than anything. Because what is one thing we know about LSU? That during the transfer portal era, LSU did not lose as many names as one would think. There were quite a few players that were already relegated to backup positions that stuck around. Why did they stick around? Those 3 letters. There's something about it. It's still a powerful brand. I know of quite a few players that took less to come here and play for this team from last year's transfer portal class. So, what does that mean exactly? That means that even though Brian Kelly was not the most well-liked guy, which was something that we said at the time, that it was weird how many Notre Dame fans and accounts made it a point to join our live stream chatters to say, hey, this guy sucks. He's always been an abrasive kind of guy. Not the most well-liked in all of that. And even with that, there's quite a few players that decided to stick around. Those 3 letters still mean something. Why do you think Frank Wilson kept bringing that up? But before we move on to that next topic, you must remember, while that is true, it might not mean as much as it once did. And it would have been a lot better if this job was open last year compared to this year. Because there is a program like Penn State where there is a hell of a lot of potential to break through. And there is a program like Florida where there's also a hell of a lot of potential to break through. So let's lock the freak in. It's coaching search season. We still have 4 more games left to go. And I understand we are so ready for whatever's next. But you want to know what's next? You want to know what's next for this LSU Tiger team? This is rare. In the history of coaching firings, LSU, when it comes to their recruiting commitments, lost 0. They lost 0. In fact, they gained one. They gained one. And it was crazy how many writers were like, oh, why would this random 3-star receiver from Louisiana Tech decide to flip his commitment to LSU? Why would he do it? Because it's Ellis freaking U. But why did all these decommitments happen? Or didn't happen? Why didn't these guys decide to go elsewhere? It would make perfect sense for them to reopen everything. Why? Those 3 mother effing letters. It's always been the thing that recruits for LSU. It always has. Now, do guys like Frank Wilson help? Yeah, of course. So I've said my piece. 20 minutes in. Let's go. Laura said I'd fire Frank Wilson so we can bring him back a year later for more money. Let's go to Pegasus. Carter, let's just say Sark bails and goes to the Titans. What would that do to the coaching market? Well, he's not taking the Titans job. I'll put it this way. I don't want to make this a Steve Sarkisian chatter. But he might not be going far. Let's go to AC. And Frank Wilson as a recruiter we trust. What's up, AC? Good to see you. Yeah, you shouldn't. I mean, look. I got super excited because I learned something today. That there's an elite offensive line recruit who shares a name with me. His name is Carter. And Pop Houston tweeted at him, come to LSU. He got an offer. I think his name was Carter Smith. I should get it right because I'm shouting him out. My mentions have gone crazy. Let's see. Carter Jones. I say Carter Smith. Carter Jones. Let's go, Carter Jones. That's such a great name, too. My last name is Bryant. That's a great last name, too. Carter Bryant. When it comes to my athleticism, I'm Vince Carter and Kobe Bryant put together. Carter Jones, when it comes to his athleticism, he is Vince Carter and last name Jones. Roy Jones Jr. put together. How about that? What's a mention? It's what you see in the chat. Okay. Now coming up next, I'm telling you, for first time media guest, he absolutely crushed it. And we're actually going to hear from a college football personnel, former college football personnel expert, and has actually worked for some of the biggest names in all of college football. He joins us right after this. PHL Nation, it's time to lock in and get serious really quickly with our friends at Fortified Gulf Coast and FortifiedGulf.com. This is my buddy Ramey. He is one of many Fortified Gulf Coast inspection professionals that are doing something to help you not only save your home, but your memories.
The Fortified program got started about 13 years ago. We adopted it here in New Orleans about 2.5 years ago. It's a more advanced way of doing the roof. It adds an extra layer of protection, whereas even if a hurricane was to pull the shingles off this roof, water will still not get into the house.
So yes, your establishment is important, but what about the things you can't replace? That family scrapbook or that painting that's been handed down from Meemaw to Papaw and to you. It is important to protect that today with Fortified Roofing. And while this seems like a priceless asset, did you know it can actually save you on your homeowner's insurance up to 37%? If Power Hour Network listeners and viewers, you might be consuming this content with that crick in your back that you've been trying to get rid of for so long. Take this as your sign today to book your appointment with LabourdTherapy.com. In the Lafayette region, there is no one that you will find that cares more about any different type of pain that you might have than the team at LabourdTherapy.com. Book today. Once again, that's LABORDE therapy.com, or you can visit
one of their 5 locations, all throughout the Lafayette region.
Coop, coop, coop. Oh, coop. Oh, coopity, coopity, coop. A guy that knows ball better than anyone. Please, okay, this is important from a YouTuber to another YouTuber. Get this guy to 1,000 subscribers. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button on his channel. Bang! Look at that.
Thank you, man.
Unsubscribed, and go ahead and look, you can even put a bell ring in there. There you go. You had my dear friend Blake Ruffino on last night. And you would do what if you were LSU right now when it comes to the coaching search?
Wow, great question. I'd get on the same page in terms of the alignment. Who's making the decision? I think that the first things first, you got to figure out what's the future of Scott Woodward, your athletic director. Are you going to let him make the hire? What's his involvement? Everybody from Governor Landry to the interim president to the board of supervisors. What does this look like? Because that is a very important detail for these coaches and the agencies that help them make the decisions when they are sifting through potential opportunities and trying to figure out, all right, what's the best one? If I'm evaluating the job in Gainesville versus the job in Baton Rouge, and everything's comparable from a geographical resources standpoint, everything's comparable from facilities to the resources that you would have invested in the roster, then really ultimately at the end of the day, what does it look like from an alignment standpoint? So I think for LSU, that would be the first order of business in a perfect world, but sometimes it's not a perfect world. But I think getting together and putting together a unified front is really important.
I think you're in a unique position to talk about Frank Wilson because you competed against quite a few of his recruits and you've been in recruiting rooms. So based on what you know about him, I mean, you've worked for so many elite head coaches. Why is he such a special recruiter, and how do you think he's going to do as the interim?
Well, I think a guy that understands Louisiana from the standpoint of being from New Orleans and what the university means to him. I think if you speak to anybody from Louisiana, the type of glowing remarks that they'll have about Frank Wilson in football circles just speaks very highly to his character and what he's about and how he represents Louisiana State University. And he understands the way that this place ticks as well. I mean, he's worked for a lot of different facets and shades of LSU football and seen this thing grow and has been through the highs and the lows of it as well. So I think he is the perfect person really over the next couple of weeks as LSU tries to figure out who their next guy is going to be to really get the locker room bought in. And because the reality is this is still a very talented football team that can achieve some things ultimately over the next couple of weeks. And from an individual development standpoint as well, you want to get the most out of these guys because these are precious reps in terms of getting answers for next season as well.
Coopity Coop joins us. I want you to rank the three big jobs that everyone is talking about: Florida, LSU, and Penn State.
Well, I think LSU and Florida, depending on what lens you look at it from, are very comparable. The regard that a lot of coaches hold LSU in, I think, is different because of the recent success that they've had. And they understand, okay, when this place is humming, what it could look like just in terms of the year-to-year consistency, the buy-in. And, you know, a lot of times what makes jobs great is also the other side of the sword of what makes them difficult, right? You look over the last 39 years, there's only been one coach in Baton Rouge as the head coach of LSU football that's lasted longer than 5 years. Okay. And that was Les Miles for 12 years.
Yeah.
Right. So the standard is a standard, right? And 3 of those guys won national championships. And I understand Nick Saban left on his own accord and went to Miami. But I think that type of intrigue really kind of puts LSU into that upper echelon. And guess what? Florida's in a comparable spot. I think there are a lot of commonalities, similarities behind the scenes from an administrative standpoint, also from a resources standpoint, from a geographical standpoint. And when I talk about geography, I mean access to big bodies, right? And we'll probably talk about that a little bit later on, but access to front 7 defenders, being able to build depth, right? That's really important for other programs in the SEC that aren't Florida, aren't LSU, aren't that caliber of program, and don't have that access to that caliber of player. That's a hard thing every year to circumvent and to build that level of championship depth. So I think that kind of seeps in. But to answer your question, it's a 1A, 1B type of thing, but I'd go LSU, Florida, Penn State.
If you're a Lane Kiffin, what would you do?
If I were Lane Kiffin, in all honesty, I see two sides of it. I see the side of staying at Ole Miss because this is a program that is now, their identity is Lane Kiffin. That's unique, right? That's a unique thing to be able to have that type of continuity and build a program in your image and likeness, right? The fabric of Ole Miss football, their DNA is Lane Kiffin. On the opposite side of that, everything that I said, access to resources in terms of geographical recruiting, Ole Miss, the way that they're built is really inversely, really kind of put together in a way that is a little bit headstrong from how everybody else is built. And what I mean by that is, for the last handful of years, Lane Kiffin has really kind of orchestrated this roster in a way that they have gone so deep into the portal that it's kind of hard to go back into the high school ranks. And they've done a phenomenal job, whether it's been Austin Thomas or Billy Glasscock, and they've had a lot of turnover in their front office. But their success that they've had in the transfer portal, that's really hard to duplicate year over year. It's almost like they're kind of on borrowed time, and they've done a better job of incrementally kind of balancing the high school ranks with the collegiate side. But a job like LSU, let's take the Ole Miss Georgia game, for example, okay? And this is why I think this really comes down to football for Lane Kiffin and really not the financial side. If you look at Ole Miss versus Georgia, they were outscored 17 points in the fourth quarter. This has happened before in Oxford. And I think the biggest thing that creeps into Lane Kiffin's mind is, can I win a national championship and be competitive to win a national championship year in and year out in Oxford? Because in Lane Kiffin's heart of hearts, I believe he believes that he's one of the best coaches in the country. And I had someone tell me that used to work for him is that the best part of working for Lane Kiffin is that 95% of the matchups that you go into, you know that you're going to have a schematical advantage.
Yeah.
At least offensively. So I think you look at the Georgia game specifically, and it's a microcosm of where I think where he's at and what he's trying to figure out is Ole Miss has good front end talent on their defensive line. They have Xavier Harris, probably going to be a day 2 draft pick. They have Will Eccles, one of the best up and coming defensive linemen in the SEC. You have Centarian Perkins. You have Prince Waumanmielen. After that, when your guys are playing 50 plus snaps and you're in the fourth quarter, it gets a little bit thin. And this is, unique to Ole Miss right now, the way that they're kind of built. That game versus Georgia, they don't have the depth at the point of attack to play 60 minutes with a team that is built that way, because they have the luxury of recruiting the state of Georgia that puts out more NFL prospects, along with the state of Florida, along with the state of California, along with the state of Texas. Those are top 4 in NFL producing talent. Guess what? Louisiana is not far behind, right? So I think if you're Lane Kiffin and you're looking at Florida and you're looking at Louisiana, that access to that specific talent, especially at every level of the defense, is really, really appealing, right? So I think that's kind of what creeps into it for Lane Kiffin. And I think really ultimately at the end of the day, it's the sustainability of the job where you can balance both the short-term and the long-term vision of saying, okay, we can recruit the high school ranks, but also I know that we're going to have the resources to compete in the transfer portal at the highest level, because LSU just showed you that they can do that. They have the number 1 ranked transfer portal class. I think the other thing that sticks into my mind is Lane Kiffin's press conference before they played LSU. And these coaches do a really good job of getting their message across to their booster base when they speak to the media. And Lane Kiffin said, hey, Mansour to Lane, AJ Halsey, we wanted both of those guys. They were the 2 most expensive players in the portal in the secondary. That's his way of saying, we wanted them. We could have had them. and we didn't do enough. And it's not like Ole Miss isn't giving him the financial backing to do what he needs to do. They're doing as much as they can, but he knows if he were to go to a place like LSU, a place like Florida, that would not be an issue. So I think it's year over year sustainability, and I think that's kind of what comes up.
Yeah, that's why I started pointing to you, because I knew what you were referencing. I think he also referenced Cooley as well. And as you know, I'm a huge Lane guy. He was my number 2 guy in the last cycle, behind Lincoln Riley. It's strange though, Cooper. I look at the coaching market. Let's say, Lane would be the biggest name probably out there, outside of like Dan Lanning or someone like that. Out of the secondary group, though, is there any name out there that really sticks out to you?
I really like John Summerall.
Okay.
I think for LSU, it's not the flashiest name. I really understand that, but this search kind of reminds me a little bit of Texas A&M when it opened 2 years ago. Because if you go to Texas A&M, you look at LSU's situation, it was the same guy that handed out the contract to Jimbo Fisher that gave it to Brian Kelly, right? So financially, I'm not saying that LSU is in a little bit of a financially capped situation, but this elf on the shelf period of college football where programs like LSU and Texas A&M just get to opt for the shiniest toy, I think is very much changing. I think we're heading for a day and age of college football where you are going to have to find the traits in a head coach that you want to live with. And it's going to be more reflective of the NFL, where you see, okay, what do we want to go with? And it's guys schematically, either on the offense or defensive side of the ball, that give you an advantage to when you don't have the talent advantage, you can overcompensate, right? And that's the biggest part of Lane that I find that a lot of people are attracted to, is that schematical advantage and the creativity and the blend that he has from his experience in the NFL to the collegiate game, and being able to get his playmakers involved. It's all those things. The fourth down against LSU to put the game away, right? Those are the type of things that you think about when you're looking to say, all right, what do we want in our next head coach? So, I think Summerall, ironically, has a defensive identity. He probably fits more into the CEO bucket, but this is a young, hungry guy that I think kind of makes sense if you're to work your way down the list. Outside of Summerall, I think there's some really intriguing names that you could go down. Joe Brady makes sense to me. Will he leave the NFL? I don't think so, right? I think Joe Brady's going to be a head coach in the NFL in the next 24 months. That would be my opinion. James Franklin, Vegas has him in the top 5 of odds. I don't think LSU would go there. I don't think they're even entertaining it. Jeff Brom, it's one of those guys from a schematic standpoint. You could say, okay, Jeff Brom as a play caller has always done more with less. He did it at Purdue. He did it at Louisville. If you look at his track record, and then it becomes, okay, well, what if we took Jeff Brom, and then from a roster management standpoint, we have everything that we want in place, right? From Austin Thomas to the way that he's built out the personnel department, we have that continuity. And then that's kind of the new age of thinking in college football, where you have a little yin and yang to the formula as well. But I think other guys, Brent Key kind of stands out, like him, like what he's about.
Yeah.
But you go down the list, the funny thing is, outside of Lane Kiffin, is there a bona fide guy that makes a ton of sense?
Not really.
Are you jumping for joy? So I think it's more about traits. What traits do you covet at the position? And I think this is a really good thought exercise, not only for the people making decisions in Baton Rouge, but for fans. Like, what is it that you want? What is it that you saw over the last 3.5 years that you could absolutely not live with? And you could go through every season and you can mark down a couple games. I get it. At home, you get waxed by Tennessee, right? Non-conference games to start the year, absolutely unacceptable. Night games versus Alabama, Texas A&M can't happen. All right, so what is it that you covet to say, you know what, never again? I want someone with an offensive identity to make sure that we're not a one-dimensional team. I want somebody that I know is going to emphasize the point of attack to make sure that we're not in the same position that we are in. And I want somebody that's going to take pride in the state of Louisiana, that's going to make sure that they're going to do everything in their power to bring this place back to where they believe it can be. And, I think there are only a few select candidates that can do that. And obviously Kiffin's one of those guys, and Summerall kind of fits the category of the young, hungry, chip on the shoulder, understands the state of Louisiana. I get he's from Alabama, but he probably finds himself, identifying more with the state of Louisiana at this point in his career. So it's going to be fascinating to kind of see how it goes, because it's going to be a pragmatic, really kind of process for LSU where, hey, if they swing on Kiffin and they don't get him, they're really going to have to put their thinking caps on and see what makes sense.
I do want to bring it, and I'm going to stick on the coaching search stuff for these last couple of questions. I do want to bring up that the last time you were on, we had a way more fascinating conversation about your Will Campbell ranking and your job back when you were a staffer with Saban and all those guys. So I'll link down below the last time, including the guy that gave you your first ever media job. We could share that some other time. But another thing is Roback. I mean, look at this, dude. We
I
are.
know. I didn't even know. Look how
Dude,
sweaty this hat is.
God, what the heck is going on, man?
Been hitting the golf semi too hard, man. I don't know.
Oh, you have a simulator in your house?
Absolutely not. No.
Oh,
No, I
okay.
don't have a
That's
simulator in my house. Local Nashville simulator.
Oh, okay, let's go now. So just a little background on Cooper. He's from New Orleans. It's faced off against the great Tyrann Mathieu in high school. You can hear all those stories in our last appearance. It's also funny that you're on a few days before we had our long conversation about Pop Houston, and boom, he commits. Interesting timing there. I want to bring up Kenny Dillingham. I just think he's special. Yes or no?
Special is a unique word. They teach you as a talent evaluator, right? What they do is they give you an encyclopedia of words to attach to certain players. And then they say, they taught us this at Alabama, that, same language is a force multiplier, right? So when you're describing certain traits, people understand what bucket you're kind of putting that player in, not only the player, but the trait that you're trying to describe, right? So an elite player or a rare player, you talk about excellent or outstanding. So when you say special, I think that's kind of putting him in the upper echelon of the coaching rankings there. I think he's got the right makeup. And the first thing that really kind of sticks out to me about Kenny Dillingham is just really kind of the introspect and the honesty and the ability to look in the mirror and take accountability week to week. And then also at the same time, to the point I made about Lane, he's been very upfront and honest about what Arizona State needs to do to be a sustainable power in the Big 12. And guess what? I mean, this is a guy that was a first-time head coach, and he's got a little, he's got a bravado. He's got some stuff in the neck, and I like what he's about. And from an offensive prowess standpoint, obviously you marry him up with Bo Nix at Oregon, you marry him up with Sam Leavitt at Arizona State. I think he understands bottom line, right? And bottom line, ultimately, at the end of the day, is that you have to have the talent to succeed. And the other side of that is LSU had the talent to succeed, and we saw a lot of coaching malpractice this year, which I think has led to this point. But you got to be able to have a week-to-week advantage to where you are developing in these guys, you have them bought in, and you can really kind of see the improvement week to week, right? I mean, go back to like, why are these guys getting paid? It used to be because, this guy is a master recruiter. This guy from a CEO standpoint, like those days are kind of, they're starting slowly to fade behind us. And what's more important is if you look at Alabama and you look at Kalen DeBoer, they get smoked week one against a lesser team in Florida State on the road. And guess what? Going into that game, the dialogue that surrounded Kalen DeBoer wasn't great. He did an incredible job to keep the outside noise outside during what felt like a very tumultuous time in really kind of like the fork in the road for Kalen DeBoer at Alabama in his first 2 years. And they've bounced back with 7 wins. And week over week, they're just finding ways to win, right? And players are getting better. The offensive line's getting a little bit better. The running game is good enough, even though they're 111th in the country. They're finding different ways to win. That's the job of a head coach. It's like the NFL, right? Like that's it. Week to week, you have to show improvement. If you look at LSU, for them as an example, and I'll bring this back to Kenny Dillingham, but it's like LSU last week was the same team that they were versus Clemson in week 1, and maybe even worse.
Yes.
And they regressed, right? So it's about week to week improvement and keeping that mentality and that mindset. And to your point, I think Kenny Dillingham has that. I think he understands that. In this world of what you're looking for in a head coach, it's all about guys with an open mind that understand that the game is changing at a absolutely rapid pace, and you have to change with it, both schematically. If you take a step outside of it, the NCAA changes the transfer portal dates every 6 months. They change the window every couple months. I mean, you look up and you don't know what's real, right? So you have to have a staff that understands, hey, our job is to adapt. That is the job of a head coach. Nobody was better at that than Nick Saban, right?
Yes.
That was his best trait. People want to talk about Saban the evaluator, Saban the recruiter, Saban from a player development standpoint. Nick Saban, his ability to adapt is what separated him from the rest of the pack. That is the job, right? It's adapt and survive. Not every year. How do we do that every week? And how do we improve our guys' play and their mental aptitude as well?
I think about a school like Arkansas. They get out in front of it, and then Florida opens up, Penn State opens up, LSU opens up. I don't even know what I would do if I were them.
That's tough. I mean, it's a really interesting situation. I think the guy that's not getting talked about enough that I think is 1B in this situation for maybe not so much LSU, but he's kind of hanging around there is Eli Drinkwitz. And I think for Florida too, you know, because Eli's kind of he's not too far off from what Lane represents, right? He's got swag. He's got confidence. He's a tad arrogant, right? You see the way that he's built Missouri's roster. I mean, Missouri's got guys, man. They got guys all over the place. They got Zion Young. They got Damon Wilson. They've done a great job on high school in the state of Missouri as well. And you go back and you look at these guys past and the decisions that they've made from, you know, what opportunity do they take next? And it's like Eli Drinkwitz left Appalachian State after 1 year, went to Missouri. Missouri was not a destination job for anybody. And he went to that place. The first 3 years were tough. And he just has this kind of self-belief about him. And he's got the offensive bravado. And then all of a sudden, you see these programs, man, they just start clicking, right? And people get bought into it. And then the first thing is first, all right, we got to win St. Louis and we got to win Missouri. They go out, they get Luther Burden, they get Williams Nwaneri. And now everybody kind of sees, all right, this is a 10-win team. We got Kirby Moore. We got Eli Drinkwitz. There's some nice pieces here. We have Blake Baker. Like, this is kind of an attractive place to be. People don't understand how hard of a job Missouri is in the SEC, and what he's done to that program, to me, doesn't get enough credit. So I think he's an attractive option. I think Brent Key's an attractive option. I think Jeff Brom's an attractive option as well. I think you'll hear those names.
Make sure you go subscribe to the channel. And now I want to give you, because I know you probably have other hits to do, I want to give you an open floor. You and I have been friends for a long time. Your brother Jansen and I have been friends for a very long time. I need Jansen to give me a job so we can go slang some cribs together. Shout him out, Jansen. I'm going to give you the floor to state any opinion about college football that's interested you. Someone that has worked in media. You've worked around, to me, the most underrated college football media member, Andrew Ivins. I don't even know the guy. I mean, you guys, you know how much I appreciate him. And you've also been in the doors of multiple college football programs. What's the one thing that from our last media appearance together on here to now that has interested you the most about the sport that you love so much?
Well, I think the game is changing so quickly, especially in the sense of coaching hires, that I feel like most national media, they can kind of feel the undercurrent of it yet, but they don't really know how to comprehend it. And I think fans are a little bit on their heels as well. Like Lane Kiffin is really like the last of the Mohicans here. Like he really is. He's kind of like the last big fish, right? Because if LSU takes him off the board, as Florida takes him off the board, what do you resort to? Like like Dan Lanning is saying, I'm staying at Oregon. I'm not going anywhere. Like this place is invested in me. They were the one to give me the opportunity. Like I'm here. Marcus Freeman, I'm here. I'm in South Bend. This is where I want to be. Eli Drinkowitz could very well say that. Clark Lee could say that.
Yeah.
Brent Key could say that. They went to school there. That was their alma mater. Vanderbilt and Georgia Tech. Right? So this new age of college football and these bloated contracts and 11, 12, $13 million a year and $54 million buyouts, I don't know how sustainable it is when there's always a demand. That demand's going to be met, especially at a place like LSU. But it's fascinating to me. I see this game both from a personnel standpoint and a coaching hire standpoint, that the 10-year contracts are like over. I look at it more kind of like Mike Elko. Hey, we're going to give you middle of the pack contract in the SEC. It's a prove it deal. You've had one stint at Duke. You did a good job. We like your promise, but go out there and earn it, and we're going to give you everything that you need to be successful. But we're going to take guys with developmental upside that we feel like understand this place. And then that's what it's going to be. We're going to give you the resources to win. And if it doesn't work out, we'll turn it over in 4 years. And the thing is that I think a lot of people haven't grappled with yet, like outside of Ohio State and Oregon, there's 2 programs in the country, in my opinion, that have not been grandfathered into this, but really kind of understand it at an unbelievable level and have this incredible sense of alignment down from the people that are signing the checks to the people that are making the decisions, to the people that are making the personnel decisions, to the people that are coaching and developing these players. Ohio State and Oregon are in a complete different category than everybody else. So to me, that's kind of the biggest thing is like, this is a year-to-year thing, man. This isn't you show up where LSU, the logo on the side of our helmet says we should kick your ass. And when that result is not what we believe it should be, then you're gone. Like I had a lot of this after the Vanderbilt game. I had a lot of people in my family, big family, friends texting me, we lost to Vanderbilt. Like it's Vandy. And it's like, I get it. I understand that. As an LSU fan, that should be your mentality. It should very much be like, this is LSU. We should not lose to Vanderbilt. I get it. I completely understand it. It's unacceptable. Same time, Vandy could go, how many weeks left do we have in the season? 4, right? Vandy goes
5, but most teams
5.
4, yeah.
Vandy goes 4-1 over the next 5 weeks. They're in the playoffs. And that's a really legit opportunity for them. And here's the thing. Vandy's done things the right way. They're competitive. The parity in college football has brought these programs together, the top and the bottom feeders. So to that point, what you're seeing happening is the programs that used to get by just on pure level of talent have now been forced into the arena with teams that have done a good job of scouting coast to coast, finding different ways to upgrade their roster. And then it comes down to X's and O's. It comes down to execution. It's not just going out there. We're going to throw the logos out in the field and we're going to let bygones be bygones.
And that's what it was. That's what it was during the Miles tenure. It really was. I mean,
and that was it, right? How many times can you run a gap toss and hold teams to 6 points, right? And they did it time and time again. And you could get away beating 95, 97% of the teams that you played back then. You can't do that anymore. And guess what? LSU has only lost to one team this year that was equal or better talent than them. And I say that with all due respect. Vanderbilt, Ole Miss got outcoached in both of those games.
Badly
outschemed. And guess what? The results showed it. So that is the world that we live in. So you better have a coach that can coach and understands that and what it looks like week to week. And it's not, yeah, it is a 30,000 feet thing, but like the recruiting thing is like, I heard you talking about it earlier. It's like, oh, they haven't lost a recruit. Most of those deals are already done financially. We've already agreed to it. We know what the financials look like. Like we're good, right? And there
Yeah,
might be some players out there with some representation that might be looking at some other spots, and
that's
it's not
interesting.
all of
Yeah,
them. But it's
that's a
like,
good point. Yeah,
from like, this is not traditional recruiting. This is like, hey, even before the season, almost 90% of the top 247 was already committed. So that would be the majority of LSU's commits. They have 10 players that are in the top 250. And LSU's in a line from a financial standpoint. And guess what happens on these official visits now on the last day? You sit down with an Austin Thomas or the
yes,
front office representation and you hash it out.
yeah, and it
That
is
that's
actual,
it.
and just for clarity, it's actual specific numbers. It's not, hey, well, you think about this. It's and you would know better than me. Is that's true? Correct?
Right. And it's like, oh, hey, we better be careful. This guy might be in a portal. It's like, guy's on a 2-year deal,
2-year
you know,
deal.
right? He's like Joey McGuire talked about that, with Will Hammond, their backup, who unfortunately tore his ACL this past week. But like when Barry Morton went out, Will Hammond came in, he balled out. And Joey McGuire, one of the first thing he said, hey, to the teams reaching out to Will Hammond, he's on a 2-year deal.
Yeah,
Like
that's what they
that's
have,
where we
and
are.
that's what they have at the and forgive that's what they have at the orgy kid, the offensive tackle, the 5-star, the
Mhm.
5.1 million over 3 years. Let's go.
Yeah, insane.
It's good stuff. Cooper, I really do appreciate you. One more thing to your point, it's just it is amazing how much better the quarterbacks are in the SEC. Not necessarily on the top end, but it's just more even, right?
Mhm.
Like I really need everyone to go back to some of those Miles era teams. The opposing team quarterbacks were not what they are now. Like it is insane. Now Vandy had some, obviously Pat Shermer and Jay Cutler and all that, but Pavia is just different. And
Well,
there's just
he
no
he
go
fits like a glove.
right.
It's about marrying up the personnel with the scheme. And I think a lot of teams have advanced there. And you look at the teams that have not done that. That has been Mike Shula and Lenore Sellers. You could say
Oh
Garrett
God.
Nussmeyer and Joe Sloan. You could do a full autopsy on LSU, and there'd be a lot of different issues. But that's important, right? Like marrying the play caller with the skill set of what you want. And
Yeah.
the other thing is like, what skill set do you want? If you've been struggling to develop the offensive line, why would you not go out there and get a quarterback that can improvise and at least extend the play?
Right. Yeah, would you do the same thing that I recommended, or would you make a change at quarterback at LSU?
Right now,
Yes.
I think it's tough given the situation. I mean, I think I told you this last time. I'm doing NFL draft prep, and it's like I don't even know where to begin to how to evaluate Garrett Nussmeyer. First of all, the play has been disappointing, but if you look at the circumstance for a team that's been pretty much one dimensional throughout the year up until the last couple of weeks, and then hasn't even been committed to the run when they've shown signs of life, he's difficult because the pressure that he faces not only off both sides from the left and right side, but he's getting it on the interior as well. I
Yeah.
don't know if you're Garrett Nussmeyer or Arch Manning or any of these guys that had the hype around him. How difficult is it to evaluate a quarterback that is facing consistent pressure, especially from the interior? There was a reason that the New Orleans Saints at 6 feet tall for Drew Brees and Russell Wilson everywhere he's been. The first areas that they had to address, Tom Brady as well, not just a size thing, for pocket passers, the interior of your offensive line has to be absolutely bona fide. And guess what? LSU did just about everything right this year in terms of talent acquisition. And the biggest mistake that they made was they had too much confidence in what they hadn't seen. They had too much confidence in Tyree Adams. They had too much confidence in Weston Davis. They had too much confidence in Paul Mupinga, who from a body type standpoint tells you he's more of a center than he is a left guard.
Yeah.
And the same goes with Cohen Eccles. And then when, it hit the fan, all I heard throughout the offseason was, because I brought it up, well, we got Josh Thompson, and if we get in a pinch, we'll move Thompson to one of the tackle spots. That hadn't happened.
No. They've
You know,
not,
so-
no imagination, really.
Right. No imagination, no creativity. I thought Carius Kern has been put in a very difficult position, but when he had to step in for Weston Davis, I thought he handled himself very well, given
Yeah.
the fact that he got, the nod 20 minutes before the game. But were they cross-training him at guard at any of the spots? I don't know how you look at Mapinga or Cohen Eccles and not say, hey, just from a body type standpoint and how well-versed Kern is from a power standpoint, his ability to naturally move bodies, maybe we should rep this guy at guard if we're struggling to run the ball as much as we are.
The weird thing about Kern is, and I asked this when I met him last year, because he was a really good high school defensive lineman as well. He's a freak, and he was like, Carter, I'll play anywhere. I will play any position that the coaching staff asks me. So it's not anything that he's done unless something's changed. But yeah, it's been strange. Cooper, we'll have you on again soon, and dude, you're just gonna keep doing awesome things, man.
No, I got one more thing for you. I want to know where you think this thing ends.
For me, as who the next head coach is going to be?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you got to have me on your show. This is a tease. When I'm on your show, I will give you my answer. But here's what I'll say: is I don't think Lane Kiffin comes to LSU. I just don't think so. It's just not going to happen. Even though that's what I would do, but I'm also very cost conscious. I understand, and this, working in front offices now is what you would call them. Cost matters. It really does matter. For some reason, I think it's going to be Kenny Dillingham. If I just want to give a hot take out there, for some reason, I just think it's going to be him. He wouldn't be the only Arizona State transfer that's come and done good things at LSU. So,
right.
I for some reason, this is not source. This is just, me sleeping on it and just thinking and just throwing a wild ass rumor out there. But I'll also say that as far as like names is concerned, LSU is really just trying to figure out who's actually going to make this move. So they're trying to figure out the president situation, and then Frank's in. So, we'll see as new details. What do you have somebody on that you think?
Yeah, I do. I think it's Lane. Fairly confident too. I give it like a 6 out of 10. Are you frozen or you're not responding? Here's the thing with Lane, though, Carter. I'm not trying to get your hopes up. The timing of it is very difficult.
Yeah.
Because what I don't think has been really kind of detailed at length is the fact that you have signing day on December 3rd. You have conference championships on December 6th. Any decision you make before that, the portal opens January 2nd to the 16th. It would be diabolical if Lane Kiffin were to leave Ole Miss in the midst of a playoff run, which feels very real. It feels very real that Ole Miss will be in the playoffs. So the mental gymnastics here, from an agency and an optics standpoint, there is no right answer. I mean, you're either saying, hey, there's two ways of doing this. You're either leaving your team high and dry to go to a team within your conference, or you're saying, hey, I'd like the opportunity to coach them through the playoffs, and I'll send my number one lieutenant, my general manager ahead, but I'm coming out publicly, and I've said that, I've agreed to be the next head coach at LSU. And how does the locker room react to that? I mean, think about the dynamics here. That makes Kiffin, whether it's Florida, LSU, makes it very difficult, you know. And if you were to remember, I forget the year it was, when Lane took the Florida Atlantic job, Saban was so disappointed with how he handled it that he gave Steve Sarkisian the play calling duties for the national championship.
He did. Yeah. I didn't
Who
think
was an
about that.
analyst at the time.
Yeah.
So like these things are nuanced, but like everything you hear about Lane Kiffin and leaving it at the middle of the night from Tennessee to USC, and yeah, I mean that stuff kind of comes up a little bit, kind of bubbles up, and you know the daughter who Landry Kiffin, who helped him stay last year, just so happens to be dating LSU starting linebacker.
So you bring
Not
up
that I'm just saying.
no,
like
no, it's as far as the lieutenants are concerned, some of those guys are already in place at LSU, as you know.
Well, here's the one thing that I want to say.
Come
Austin
on.
Thomas worked for Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss.
Yes.
He then left to go to LSU. So what do you think that relationship's like? I'm just putting it out there, right? It could be cordial. It could be professional. It could not, right? So, and then Lane's got a guy in Billy Glasscock that he likes a lot. And if you're paying the guy, shelling him out $13.5 million, you're going to give him the autonomy to do what he wants. So all these things kind of get fuzzy, hairy a little bit.
And then Bolden left too from Ole Miss to LSU. So yeah, and I'm not saying that he changes anything. It's just you get into Magnolia Bowl rivalry and all of that, and it does become strange if you're going to say, "Hey, I'm leaving, but I do want to finish out coaching this team." I think because LSU and Ole Miss is such a rabid rivalry, I'm not sure if Ole Miss fans would want him to finish out.
No, I mean it's unheard of, especially because you're doing something at that program that hasn't been done. You're taking this program to uncharted territory in terms of approaching a college football playoff spot. I mean, so there is a lot on this at stake, and I think Ole Miss fans are maybe starting to understand that Lane might be leaving, but at the same time, they're like, all right, okay, maybe we can grapple with that. It's not great. We wish it wasn't the case, but we have a team right now that we think can win a championship.
One more thing on that, because that Lane is my number one guy. I'm not gonna push back on any of that. And if you are right, I would jump for joy. That's how high I am on him, and I think many PHLers know that. With that said, though, it would be a way more bizarre transition than Brian Kelly from Notre Dame, Lincoln Riley to Oklahoma to USC. And I just I don't know. I just don't think he does that. I don't think he ends up doing it. But according to you, if you're sticking with 6 out of 10, that's a pretty high likelihood. Knowing
It's in there. It's in there 5 to 6. I mean, I think the biggest hurdle right now, honestly, is the timing. And then I think for him, it's like, can I win a championship at Ole Miss? It's almost kind of like a question that he still needs to answer. And he's going through it right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, did I build a team that has what it takes to go through this entire SEC schedule and win a national championship? So he's still in kind of like this unique information gathering mode.
What I do recommend, and I've brought this up a few times, is he did an interview with Herb Street on like Herb Street has like a new YouTube thing. So it wasn't even an ESPN interview. And Lane shared some very interesting things about like fourth down management and all of that. One thing that was fascinating though was how he addresses his team. So you have the Molly McGrath report that he was going to address his team about the Florida rumors. Okay. Cooper, I've never seen a report like that. It was different. You know which one I'm talking about, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So what Lane's message to his team has been is this whole thing is different. The way that I'm going to address you as far as how your role is on this team or how your role might be on the next team. So he's addressed his team in a more modern way anyway. So I do think his players would understand it based on the messaging, but man, it would be,
Yeah, and if there's any locker room that would understand it, it'd be Lane's.
yes. So
I mean, they're all made up of majority portal guys, right? So, and I think in this day and age, like the way that the message is with these guys is like these players are so much smarter than I think a lot of people give them credit for. They just don't want to be lied to. Hey, be real with us. Hey, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be here next year. All I know is our goal for what we said in the beginning of the season is out in front of us. I can promise you we will see that through.
all right, Cooper. Is there any other bombshell opinions you want to drop on our beautiful souls?
No, that's it, man. That's just an opinion, you know. I mean,
That's
given
fine.
my experience, that's what I think is going to happen, you know.
All right, buddy. We'll talk soon.
So, all right, man. Appreciate it.
See you. Cooper, drop it a bomb. I just don't know. Do I wish I was wrong on that? Yeah, I wish I was wrong on that. I wish Lane Kiffin would come to coach LSU. Because here's my thing. I understand things change, but how could I look at you, the audience, and have Lane Kiffin be my number 2 guy back in 2021? And then him exceed expectations at Ole Miss. Beat us twice. Probably should have beat us 3 times. Exceed those expectations and then look at you in the eye and say, "Oh, I don't think that guy should be our guy." In our own conference. Okay. Here's a funny thing. He missed the playoffs last year. I get this a lot with Lane Kiffin. Well, he hasn't won anything. Guess what? None of these other candidates have either. None of them. Why is it? It's so weird that the biggest criticism of Lane Kiffin is, well, he's not won anything. Well, what the hell has Dan Lanning done? Well, he's been to a playoff. Yeah, and how many playoff games did he win? None. I have said it plenty of times over. And I know Lane Kiffin feels the same way about this as I do. Last year's Ole Miss team is the biggest choke job of the modern college football era. At the end of the season, I do my own power rankings. So I think the best teams actually are. And the 2 best teams in college football last season just happened to play in the second round of the playoff. So Oregon and Ohio State, whoever won that game was who I thought was going to win the national championship. I bet it as such. And the number 3 team was Ole Miss. Ole Miss was the 3rd best team. Lane choked that team away. He did. They beat everybody by double digits. Their only 1 possession games they lost. He was unlucky, but he lost to 2 teams he shouldn't have lost to, in Kentucky and Florida. And LSU was a game he should not have lost, but he did. Now, we say hi to Adam. We go to a few super chats that I did miss. Michael, good God, you have the right guy at LSU right now in Frank Wilson. Build around him like he did Orgeron. Rebuild the pipeline because it's fading. Schematically, how would Dan Lanning fix LSU? Well, that would be an interesting conversation. Would Dan Lanning be open to retaining LSU's current defensive coordinator No, I don't think so. I think he would go in a different direction from Blake Baker, but I just don't think Dan Lanning's coming to LSU. I don't. Let's go to Adam, who also became a new member. Welcome. If he is willing to have the talk with LSU, I don't think they should not make the call and see what bit it would take to get Nick Saban back, at least find out what a deal would look like, in his opinion. So Nick Saban to LSU has been floated around by Peter Burns, who's, probably Peter was a mentor to me when I was in college, and then by Clay Travis, who I know, not well, but there you go. And look, it would cost a whole heck of a lot. Nick did say that Terry Saban is the decider in that. Most coaches do. Mike Elko has said the same thing, and guess what? There's a lot of truth to it. Alert. Tim Duncan would have been with the Orlando Magic had Doc Rivers agreed for his wife to ride the team plane at the time. Now, it's a rumor, but I would like to believe it because in a lot of situations, including Nick coming to LSU, Nick shared this in his Louisiana Hall of Fame speech. Who made the decision to come to LSU? Terry Saban did. Terry Saban, okay? Would Lane Kiffin keep Blake Baker and Corey Raymond? Yeah, it would come down to what Ole Miss would want to do. I could see them promoting their defensive coordinator, who is coached under Saban. It's been great. He was once at Southeastern as well. Would he want to come back? That would make sense. I also think now that there is a transition, that Blake Baker will more than likely take a head coaching job somewhere else. That makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. I have heard plenty of times that schools are interested in him being a head coach. There is a big piece of me that also thinks Blake Baker, who is a good defensive coordinator in my mind, is actually better head coaching material, right? I think the strange thing is Blake Baker's name was rumored for Tulane. And John Summerall and Blake Baker are very similar. Okay? Now, before we skedaddle, I will be joining AYS here in just a few moments. It was so strange because I just tweeted something out yesterday that I did not think it would get any traction. But the best thing to discuss outside of head coaching searches when it comes to LSU is statues, right? It is a shame that we don't have a Joe Burrow statue up already. I think if you win the Heisman or if you're a head coach and you win a national championship, you should have a statue. Every single Alabama head coach, once they win a natty, their statue gets put up. It's a really cool thing at Tuscaloosa. All right. But Jeff Landry said, hey, out of nowhere, there needs to be a statue of Charlie Kirk. So I tweeted out a lot of LSU athletes that I would prefer to have a statue. And people got mad. So I'll address it here. Charlie Kirk statue, that gets political. I don't do politics. But like we said, Jeff Landry is involved over the last 48 hours. And the thing that was crazy to me is that he filmed it in an athletic portion of campus. So if there were a Charlie Kirk statue, why would you film it where we enshrine LSU athletic things like Mike the Tiger and Bob Pettit and all of that, Pete Maravich, Shaquille O'Neal? Why don't you put it in Free Speech Alley? Right? That would be a better spot to put it. We all have our own opinions of statues. My point is, there needs to be a statue of Joe Burrow on LSU's campus and Jay Johnson at the LSU baseball facility and many others. But, it was a strange time to film that video when there is a lot going on right now. And it goes back to the situation with everything that happened at the women's basketball tournament which I don't want to rehash, that was strange. It was like Kim Mulkey, who we all adore, is put in a difficult spot. It's a difficult spot. So we're in a transition period. This is not an endorsement or a pushback to a statue of anyone. It was just strange to me. Very strange. There are more important things. Okay. And once again, that's me disagreeing with another human, not me making a political statement under any stretch of the imagination. I just tweeted out all the names of all the people I want statues for. The only non-negotiable, I think, would be Joe Burrow and Jay Johnson at the baseball facility next to Skip Bertman's statue, which is cool. Okay? But there you go. I did this at the end because I knew this was going to get the chat going nuts. It's not, once again, nothing for me involving that was political. I just thought it was strange. Now, I do want to finish up here on what I did not know Cooper was going to say that. I did not. Making sure we didn't miss any supers. Sibley wants me to be the head coach. I will tell you, I will say this for Lane Kiffin. You guys know, as far as Lane is concerned, it's crazy as an LSU YouTuber how much love I've given Lane Kiffin on this channel. As someone who has beaten us at Alabama and has now beaten us at Ole Miss. I would be overjoyed. I would. It would be very hard for me to, even knowing what the price tag would be, I think it's worth it. I do. For Lane, I think it is. James Franklin, no. I would prefer Lane Kiffin over Dan Lanning, and some of the other big names, I would prefer Lane Kiffin over Marcus Freeman. And it is interesting that Kelvin Shepard's name is the most popular. I will also say this. This is just an objective standpoint, right? This is me liking Lane as a coach. Like, as a person, I think he's interesting. But what he stands for as a coach, there is no name that's been brought up more in our chat from you guys than Kelvin Shepard. None. None. Chad says Scott Woodward should pay the $53 million from his own check. Well, per multiple reports, the buyout could be reduced, which I would be skeptical of. But the buyout is mostly being paid by one individual. See, normally with the guests, I miss out on a lot of chats. Oh, okay. So Jordan, who's a longtime viewer. So Cooper and I go way back before this. So his older brother and I were roommates, basically. Then Cooper came to LSU, was a really good high school football player, and I gave him his first media job. We went to the Senior Bowl together. And then he became a staffer for a lot of different teams. And he's been with 247 and has been way more successful than me. I'm just me. Let's go to CK. He's been rocking with us for years. In Dallas, Coach Frank did a great job in today's press conference. Welcome to the channel, Tiger Time. Key isn't leaving tech. Let's go to Ronnie. Ronnie, I appreciate it. It was you that reached out to me, and you said, where could you find my old stand-up clips? I think you could probably find them on YouTube somewhere. I stunk. I did it for 5 years, and I still never got good at it. But it is interesting today. I did agree to go back and do it again. You make a good point, though. Frank Wilson's situation is eerily close to Ed Orgeron with Les Miles. Let's go to Adam. He wants Brad Davis replaced as the offensive line coach. Yeah, I think that's happening. Oh, is Jace Max in the chat? Put Frank in. He's a dog. Jace Max is my guy. Everybody welcome Leslie Ann Haygood to the channel. Now, this is what I like to see. It doesn't get any better. A lot of you have anonymous profiles like, oh, B-Bird. Who do I want as the LSU Tigers head coach next season? First off, love a good family. Look at this. This is what it's all about. Taking the kiddos. You got all 5 of the little munchkins here, or 2 little munchkins and someone else. It's Lane Kiffin. That's who I want. So there you go. I just got a message. A Baton Rouge media legend is interested in making a return on the airwaves, and he wants to do it with us. Hopefully, that was a Facebook little ding. Hopefully, we can have him on tomorrow. We will be on again tomorrow at 6 p.m. Central, and we will see you there. Programming note, I am not going to be live on Thursday night. I'm actually traveling to Baton Rouge to DJ a huge wedding for PHLers, for a PHL, my guy Dylan. So mark that down. We will not be live on Thursday night. So we'll talk to you soon. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom. Tonight we are doing y'all get to Blake's show right now. Make sure I didn't miss any. Jared, thank you so much. Julie as well. That was from last night's stream, though. Tonight we are doing steaks. Let's go. Y'all get in the chat on Blake's show, okay? Let's go.